Fix it. Here. I couldn't get the slide fixed. But I printed a card.
Good morning, all. Call the meeting to order. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to ask for approval of agenda. I'd like to request and then to new business. Motion to request that. RFI to solicit operations for network connectivity presented by me on behalf of Doug Parks. Oh, yes. And all in favor? Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, to make a move to approve the agenda for today. All in favor? Approval of minutes, February 6th budget session, February 10th budget session, February 25th regular meeting. Request any corrections to the minutes of those meetings. Ms. Jacobs.
I noticed in the minutes for February the 10th, under the budget discussion, it indicated that the increase to the base would be $945. I don't think that's what 13.5% turned out to be. Whether that was the figure that we talked about, but when I did the calculation, it actually is $953.
926.
On February 10th.
No, I mean 926.
Oh, on 921.
921.
I just didn't want anybody to think that's what the amount would turn out to be if they chose to use their credit card and the 3.5%.
A question on that proposal. If I recall, was that a proposal in lieu of the 921 rate? And it was only if you paid 921 by check or cash, it would be 921, but the assessment would have been 945. And I don't think we accepted that proposal.
What I'm referring to is if you pay the 921 with a credit card, it would have tacked on to it the 3.5% convenience fee, which would be $953 and some odd cents, not $945. So that was my concern. Someone might think, oh, well, if I pay my assessment with a credit card, it should only be $945.
But I think what this referred to was Mr. Hill proposed the assessment to be $945. And if you paid it by cash or check, it would be $921 to give to. And we didn't accept this proposal.
I don't think so, Tom. I think it was always going to be $921.
No, that's Director Herrick. No, what the board passed is $921 in annual assessments. That must remain as is. The convenience fee. Most of the banks and financial transactions companies request that any convenience fee must be stated in dollar value, dollar amount, not percentage. I think what acting GM suggested is a convenience fee not to exceed 4%. Okay, so he has set a limit, but my position on this issue and the reason I voted against it is first because the convenience fee has to be spelled out in dollar number. Compliance was most of the financial institutions require. It cannot be added to the annual assessment, because annual assessment passed by the board in 921. We cannot send bills to members that's 945 or anything like that. Convenience fee must be quoted separate from the annual assessment. So I think that's what Director Jacobs is questioning, if I understand it correctly. And it does require clarity, because what we don't want to do is send invoices to membership credit card charges that are going to show 945 or 967 or whatever the dollar value might be. The convenience fee must be quoted as a separate charge to that bill. When the person receives a credit card statement, it must show 921 as a single charge, and then convenience fee as a dollar value X.
I understand that discussion, and I understand exactly why the board decided not to entertain this proposal for those exact reasons that you're just explaining. This was just something that I recall the GM throwing out there as something to consider in lieu of what you had spoken about, but the board discussion after that exactly agreed to what you're saying, and that's why we didn't accept that. And I think it's two separate issues that we're talking about.
Okay, when I read that in the minutes, I was trying to make sure everything was, as I recalled it as well. I just thought that stuck out to me, that it might create a problem. So,
I mean, I just thought this was kind of an illustrative, for illustrative purposes, because and not an exact number, just kind of, okay, if we have a convenience fee, then the assessment would increase. Because I think it said we'd approach it in FY 2019. So, I mean, I didn't take it as absolute, gospel kind of thing.
It is absolute. I just received an invoice for our current assessments, which I paid, and I think there is a footnote that states if a member decides to pay with credit card via that charge convenience fee, it is on the statement for current billing cycle.
Then I guess the bigger question is, what are we discussing for 2019 if it's on the billing statement now? I guess I didn't even look at my billing statement. That's always been there, hasn't it? There will be a convenience fee if you.
Just a service fee.
in the past, I think it was typically associated with paying for your amenities,
Not
not the assessment. However, it is on the billing statement, and of course you can pay your assessment with a credit card now. But it also has at the bottom 3.5%. So when you multiply 921 by 3.5%, it's not 9.5. That was.
Well, suppose we just amend the minutes with that number.
That's all I was suggesting
And do
anyway.
that's fine. Okay.
That's all I was suggesting.
Okay.
Any other changes?
Yeah, I have a comment. I don't know if this is worth changing or not. Minutes for February 6th budget session meeting. As you know, I was not present at that meeting, nor at the February 10th meeting. But minutes indicate, for example, the way votes were cast for instance, beach parking was passed unanimously. I was not present at the meeting, so I wonder if the statement can be modified, passed unanimously by those present, so it doesn't imply that all 7 directors voted in favor of. That's just for sake of clarity.
I'm not opposed to that.
Votes are only taken by those present. I don't really care, but votes are only taken by those present. So it was unanimous.
Okay, leave as is. Any other changes? Okay, I'll request the approval of the minutes of those meetings. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, A couple of announcements I'd like to make. First, I'd like to let the membership know that Brett Hill is not here today because of the birth of his son, Andrew William, yesterday. To Kim and Brett, congratulations to them. Brett will be taking a temporary leave of absence until April 7th. In the meantime, Colby Phillips will assume the duties of general manager as he is appointed. Mary Bosack and Brian Townsend are here today to present the GM report in place of Brett, and I will present the GM capital purchase request today, his request. Additionally, Doug Parks is not here. He had a prior commitment. He will not be with us as well. And I have a quick update on the recruitment process for the GM position is on its way. Proposal should be out by the end of next week, and first review of the applicants is scheduled for May 1st. Treasurer's report, Patsy.
First, I just hit the wrong button. I have number 1 on it. Does that mean anything? I hit the end button.
Did it again.
Oh, now it goes to now. The slide that's presented there, it has one error on it, and my buddy Gene found that error last night and sent me an email. I have corrected it, and I will speak to that, but I don't know how to change the slide, so I'll speak. For the 10 months ended February 28, 2017, the results of operations and capital, and the amounts are all presented in thousands of dollars. For assessments and others, the operating revenue, $6,454. For amenities, the total operating revenue, and this includes all amenities, yacht club, beach club, marina, etc., is $3,960. Expenses for assessments and other. The expenses are for our services, the police department, fire department, admin, etc., and the expenses in Parks and Rec. The expenses for that area, $5,780, and the expenses for amenities, $3,458. So for our bottom line, from assessments and our services, the net is $674, and for our amenities, the net is $502, making a total net for 10 months of $1,176, and new capital expenditures of $228, for a final net of $948, which does not include depreciation. The depreciation number is $1,481 year to date. The variances from the budget for revenue variance from budget was $226, and the amenities making that up are, the amenities are under budget by $306, Parks and Rec under budget by $26, and assessments, grants, and other revenue over budget by $107. That's the number that's wrong. So it's $107 for assessments and grants and other revenue over budget, $107. So on the expense side, year to date, wages and utilities both are under budget by $129, and bad debt, and I also left a word out. I need a secretary or something. I'm just kidding. Bad debt and marketing and promotion were over budget by $126. And that makes the total actual variances from budget $226. And if you add up the big hitters that I listed there, I don't go into all the little detail, the total of those is $228. So that explains pretty much the entire variance, bottom line variance year to date. The net amenities variance is $217. For reserves, the balance at the beginning of this fiscal year, $5,704. And through the assessments, the additions, $3,708. And expenditures and transfers out, $2,846. And that's capital purchases, the country club, for example, and other major capital repairs. For collections, receivables, 98% of assessments have been collected at this point in time, and we're almost to the end of this current fiscal year. The write-offs year to date, 205, and that is pretty much the same number as last year. So our write-offs have been consistent year to year. Some of that is still the leftover from the real estate bubble. That was significant. People had, went into foreclosure, and once that all happens, the whole collection process becomes impossible, difficult to impossible. For the receivables year to date, 970, and that's the number that's on the balance sheet. The assessments that went out in March, for some reason, hit the current year in our detail, and they shouldn't be there. So we don't have a current year. What happens is it rolls. So the total 970 that you see here, if you look at our balance sheet, that's the number you see, and that's the number that we have as receivables. And 1 year is 216 of that, 3 years 155, and 4+ years 599. Capital spending actual 2560, which makes a budget variance of 769. The bulkhead and waterways reserve balance 1833, and spending in that area year to date 50.
General Manager's report.
General Manager's report, Mary Bosak.
We are working diligently in the back office to implement more efficient and automated back office functions to streamline the accounting effort and payroll. We began working with SC&H a few weeks ago on implementing changes in the back office. We are ensuring with them that any changes that are made in the account are approved by them as a expert. The financial process update, in the first week of February, we did have a payroll cycle shift. What formerly was happening was that we had a Tuesday to Monday payroll cycle for all departments, with the exception of the Yacht Club, who was on a Wednesday to Tuesday payroll cycle. What we've done is streamline the payroll effort now. All departments have. You can't hear me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have a mic?
I don't.
That's what I thought.
Would you like me to step over?
Well, we can hear you, but it's not going to be recorded or watching, which I'm sure is a large number.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Thank you.
Okay. Mary, if you wouldn't mind starting over.
Absolutely, no problem. So we're working to implement a more efficient and automated back office function in the accounting department. We did begin work with SC&H a few weeks ago on implementing some accounting processes changes. They are acting as our subject matter experts and are therefore approving any changes that will be made in the back office. During the first week of February, we did have a payroll cycle shift. All departments, with the exception of the Yacht Club, typically had a Tuesday to Monday payroll cycle. The Yacht Club ran on a Wednesday to Tuesday payroll cycle. So we've streamlined that effort. Payroll cycle now begins Monday and ends on a Sunday. That resulted in an 11-day payroll cycle for the Yacht Club last month and some incremental payroll costs to the department in February. I am looking into researching exactly what those incremental costs were. Beginning in May, we're going to convert from a weekly payroll cycle to a bi-weekly payroll cycle. What this will do is reduce our payroll costs by approximately $13,000 a year in processing fees. We are one of approximately 20% of organizations that currently pay on a weekly payroll cycle. most organizations pay bi-weekly just for that purpose to reduce payroll processing costs. In reviewing our accounting software, we're looking to migrate to a more integrated general ledger reporting package. We are working aggressively to streamline our data flow. Our front-end applications do not currently speak to the back-end general ledger, so there's a lot of manual processing occurring in the back office. We have to rekey things because the POS systems don't communicate with the general ledger. So we are looking at implementing some sort of software front-end applications to the general ledger directly. We are looking, management is starting to work together to purchase under one umbrella. We would like to shift to purchasing paper goods, chemicals, and food and beverage purchases under one umbrella to achieve economies of scale, drive down costs. And again, speaking to the accounting software update would be an inventory management module so that we purchase our inventory. Inventory flows through the system and can be sent out to those various departments and accounted for appropriately. So, we transitioned management from Landscapes Unlimited to Ocean Pines during the month of February. The February financials do contain some adjustments for end of the year that LU made that would have typically occurred in April of this year, and those adjustments were to both revenue and expense line items that LU reported in February. In particular, they wrote off expired gift certificates and rain checks to revenue that fell into the Gulf Ops revenue line item. Mumford's Landing has completed their transition of the point-of-sale system from Micros to Touch Bistro. There was an addition of some kitchen staff in February that were being trained for Turns Grill and Beach Club operations. Yacht Club was not making its daily numbers on Wednesdays, so the decision was made to close Wednesday nights effective March 22nd. In looking at financial statement variances for the Yacht Club, there was incremental training of that new staff, as I mentioned, for the Turn Grill and Beach Club that came into play in February. Additionally, there was increased staff for training purposes for the soft opening. That was the first weekend in February. And with respect to that soft opening, the food and beverage was heavily discounted for that opening. I also want to mention credit card fee expenses were slightly high in February, and that's because we changed credit card processing companies. Prior processing companies would charge us 1 month in arrears and went to a new processing organization that charges us daily. So we actually had January expense that hit February as well as the February daily expense on that line item. Brett, Brian, and myself are working to approve those financials. Update on construction in progress. The Gulf Clubhouse first floor Turn Grill and bathrooms are under construction. They do have a targeted completion date of April 1st. Outstanding open items include the lobby, the handicap bathroom, which will be started as soon as the main bathrooms are complete. There is a portable handicap accessible bathroom being delivered in the interim. Also, the Pro Shop Spruce Up is still outstanding, as well as HVAC underway and in progress, and is also to be completed in April. See progress in Clubhouse. The golf course spring startup has begun effective March 1st. LU staff and grounds crew that had been laid off have been called as of March 1st. Drainage repairs, seeding, and fertilizing are underway. All equipment is being serviced in order to ensure that our assets are in good working order and that we minimize the use of subcontractors. Projected end date of this work is June 17th. Clubhouse Road bridge repairs are 90% complete. At this point, still outstanding are the sidewalk repairs. Project completion is slated for the end of April. Clubhouse Road bridge repairs. Ocean Parkway bridge repairs have encountered some delays with regard to utilities. They actually caused both bridge repairs to run a bit behind schedule. Ocean Parkway is in the process of now migrating utilities. Upon completion of utility move, outstanding work still to be completed is the concrete pillar work, wood railings, and sidewalks. The Macklin Meadows Playground project. The equipment is in production with the manufacturer currently. Installation is expected to begin around mid-April, with completion of this project by the end of month or beginning of May. And as a side note, the pirate ship for the yacht club was delivered this week. The official opening of that playground is planned in the next few weeks. And finally, the beach club bathroom project is still on track for an early May completion. Willow Construction is working through some minor engineering changes, and they have added additional resource to ensure that we stick to our timeline on that project. Mother's Day brunch is still targeted as the opening date for the beach club.
Thank you. Public comments? Okay. Okay. Capital purchase requests. Mr. Hill requested that I propose these requests for him. Most of these items were discussed at our work session on Monday. The first one is going to be Mumford's Landing pergola. Motion to move to accept Public Works Department constructing pergola at Mumford's Landing for band and events use. Pergola will, if possible, be constructed with wheels or casters to make it movable. Based on the discussions on Monday, the recommendation to the capital request is for Public Works to fabricate a structure with open sides and hidden shades that would retract for weather and sun. The proposed roof would be metal to match the tiki bar. The structure is requested to be built on casters or wheels, so if possible and desired, could be relocated on the patio area. Originally in the budget, it was budgeted for about $18,000. It's estimated that this would cost less than $15,000 for Public Works to build. Do I have a second?
I second.
Discussion.
I support the idea of the pergola, but could the motion have the dollars in there? I don't see it. I mean, if we make a motion to go ahead and do it, it doesn't look like there's anything capping it anywhere. You know, the expenditure. Not to exceed, the budgeted amount or something. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be well under it, Tom, but should we have in the motion not to exceed?
I think the explanation was that it's under the amount that he would need, general manager would need before board approval.
Okay.
And if it did exceed that, come to the board for approval to exceed that dollar amount.
Okay, I'm just trying to, so if it's halfway finished, and he would come then, and it's already on its way, I don't know.
I think Pat has a good point. And I think it's certainly putting in budget amount is it not exceed. Then if it exceeds the budget amount, then
Right.
So you want to add not to exceed the budgeted amount.
I think that, yeah.
doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah. And then if it goes over the budgeted, then, as Dave said, then, GM comes back to the board with that. But at least this has put in the motion a limit on the expenditure where there's none otherwise.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes.
As I've stated previously, I am totally against having this where it's intended to be located to begin with, and I would be more amenable to agreeing to it if it was a definite that it would be movable. But because the language says, if possible, I don't have any confidence that it'll turn out to be movable, and therefore I would not be able to read it.
I share Director Jacobs' concerns. I would be more in favor of a motion language that is more clear with regard to pergola being mobile and movable as opposed to possibly permanent. Simply because on days when there is no entertainment and no need for pergola, nice to have it out of sight and not distract from the overall appeal and ambience of that open area. And that's basically my primary concern. I'm all in favor of having something for the band and the entertainment that's been asked in the past. My concern is that the structure might become permanent and in a location that's less than desirable.
Personally, I'm not opposed to a pergola being there permanently. I mean, right next door at the Mumfords Landing Pool, there's two structures right alongside the waterfront that are attractive. And I think they're useful, attractive, and I don't think it takes away from any of the appearance of looking out over the landscape. So I certainly don't, in my own opinion, think that it needs to be moved continually. I'm in favor of the motion, and there's no further discussion. I'll call the question.
Just a final remark. I think that whole patio area is becoming too busy. You got fire pits, you got pirate ship, you got tiki bar, now you got pergola. I really, if your position is to vote as is, certainly not going to vote in favor simply because I don't favor pergola turning into a permanent structure at the location that is not desirable.
Any further?
Yes. I'd just like to point out that, while everybody seems to agree there's a place for a band, maybe not a majority, no other alternatives is at all. Pergola in itself is the most attractive alternative that we've seen. It's a nice looking structure. And as we pointed out during the endless discussion, it has multiple. It's not just for band, but for potential of weddings, potential of just being there in a shady spot out on the, and as far as saying the patio is becoming crowded, it's only because we put things there. We voted for fire pits because everybody likes the fire pits. The tiki bar came with the hot club. It wasn't put there as an afterthought. There's a large amount of space out on that patio. So, I understand why some people are not pergola, but I am.
I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, community center passenger van. Yes. The motion is to move to accept staff recommendation, Hertrick Fleet Services, $30,293 for a 2017 Ford Transit van. Lowest price bid is based on Hertrick, Maryland state vehicle bid. It's 10 to 12 weeks for delivery. The estimated arrival would be the last week in May at ported now. Do I have a second?
A second.
Discussion? Mr. Trendick.
Thank you, Mr. Herrick. As you all know, during the work session, I've discussed this subject and I expressed my concerns with this approach. The motion does not bring up a broader issue, and I'd like to just restate this before you call for a vote. Number one, the board has never been presented with a financial justification why a transportation service should be brought in-house, why a van should be purchased, as opposed to continuing to lease this service as it has been done in the past. We all know the cost of ownership, total cost of ownership for something like this far exceeds the purchasing price of a vehicle. You're probably looking at double the $30,000 amount if we know what the industry general practice forecasts for a total ownership costs. Number two, the argument presented to us is that we're buying a 12-passenger van in order to circumvent issues concerning the insurance, the liability, the need for a professional driver, etc. What happens if we have 13 kids that we need to transport, or 15, or 18? So the justification for buying a 12-passenger van, it seems not to really address the operational issue, and that is transporting X amount of kids to campsites. And if you have a capacity issue, then you've got a problem. Number three, as far as I know, we don't know really which employee is going to be tasked with driving this vehicle and driving children around. Employee might be willing to do this, but does his or her job description state that he or she will be driving kids around? And what happens in the case of an accident? If you lease a vehicle and a professional driver, these are less of an issue and less of a concern on behalf of the association as far as the liability goes. I don't know who's going to drive this van. I don't know what her or his driving skills are when it comes to driving around 12 kids. But for these reasons, I believe it is best that association continues to lease this kind of a service and perhaps negotiate a more recurring contract at a discounted rate, daily rates, as opposed to having been charged in the past on an hourly basis. I think this is a smarter, safer, more flexible approach. Therefore, I will vote against it for those reasons if this motion is called to a vote.
Mr. Trendick, you have expressed your concerns both at the budget hearings and also at the work session. The same concerns that you explained to us today. Mr. Hill answered many of those questions during those two previous sessions. He's putting this forth for motion today, and he's requesting the vote. Is there any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Aye. Okay, 3-2. Thank you. Police Department Explorer. It's a motion to move to accept staff recommendation on a Hertrick Fleet Services, $27,560 for 2017 Ford Police Interceptor utility four-wheel drive. Staff recommendation is the lowest bid based on the Hertrick, Maryland state vehicle bid. Do I have a second?
I'll second. I'm sorry.
No one up.
Discussion. I
I just have a quick question. This wasn't covered during the work session. Is this a new vehicle being added to the fleet, or is this a replacement vehicle? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's a replacement vehicle. That's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Public Works truck. There's a motion to move to accept staff recommendation on the Hertrick Fleet Services $28,587 for a 2017 Ford F-250 four-wheel drive extended cab truck. Current truck is 10 years old to 2007. It's 84,113 miles. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Discussion.
I have a question. I didn't realize Mary and Brian left, but does the association have a policy on when and under what conditions vehicles are to be replaced? The justification states just the mileage and the decrease in the miles per gallon. It doesn't state that the vehicle has other operational problems in a shop constantly, etc. So I'm just curious if we have really a fleet replacement policy.
Having been through these things many, many times, and during the budget process, I can say safely that there's no generic process, policy that covers all of our vehicles. They're used for different purposes on different circuits, particularly in public works. So I believe the answer, to the best of my knowledge, is no. And I never in the last 10 years have seen actually. But on the other hand, this is a 2007 vehicle. 10 years old, and with significant miles on it. And public works, I'm sure, has had significant hard use. I think, to a certain extent, it's a judgment. Moreover, if there were a policy, I don't think it would be effective.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, proposed motion, golf club upstairs floor plan. The motion to move to accept the general manager's recommendation of the attached floor plans for the upstairs of golf club building. This motion and the police administration motion, which is next in line, are to allow Public Works to move forward with floor plans as proposed at the work session on Monday. The request is to instruct Public Works to move forward, means that we're accepting in principle the concept as proposed, and we're instructing our in-house crews to move forward with the final drawings and permits immediately. Official construction will not start until May 1st, but we want to agree to the general concept so we can start the permit process now. Have a second.
Second.
Discussion.
I don't know what you just said. I don't understand the second part of it, that we have this in principle and in concept, and I don't know what that means. I mean, are these the floor plans that we're going to proceed with?
Well, from what I understand, we're looking to instruct the crews to move forward with the final drawings and permits. So I would say they need to get engineering reports before final approval.
It was my understanding that after the discussion at the work session, The only concern expressed by you, Dave, was that this floor plan had not been, that the general population of Ocean Pines hadn't had an opportunity to view this floor plan, even though there were multiple floor plans presented months ago that we talked about, and this was Brett's recommendation for what he thought was the best of all of those. And that the idea was that it would be immediately put out on the website after our board meeting that would give then the community ample time to look at it before today's meeting, but that yes, we were generally in favor of this being the final floor plans for both of these, and we would take a vote today to move forward in that regard. That's my understanding.
Well, I'm pretty close to that, but if this has been out, it certainly hasn't been as visible on our webpage as, say, our real forum. I mean, can you all find it? Have you all gone to the webpage? Have you seen it's there? I think probably it was embedded in the board package, which contains 74 pages. And that's not exactly what I would call a community or inspiring a community discussion. And I still feel just as uncomfortable as I did on Monday. Monday was, not that long. So I don't know what this means. I mean, those words, Tom, if you read them again, bottom part only, what do they actually mean? Basically, if we vote for this, are we voting for this before, and with no possibility of future changes? That's as simple as I can make the question.
I can only offer, you're asking me to explain someone else's proposal. I can only offer my interpretation that the general manager is asking for approval of the concept as proposed from the drawings that he submitted that you had the ability to examine, and that based on the conceptual drawing, the concept itself, that he will put out for permits and final drawings for final approval at a later date.
The way that I interpreted it, and Dave, I hear what you're saying, was the concept is meeting rooms of some size that works for the structure that's there and the walls that are there and that sort of thing. A dining, the basic contents of that floor would be meeting rooms, a dining area, the turn grill, the porch would be opened up again, entrance would be as noted, the restrooms, that kind of thing. To me, the only issue was the one or two of the walls of the meeting rooms, the size of the meeting rooms, and I think we weren't sure exactly where that would fall. But the idea that this was going to be meeting rooms, a dining area, bathrooms, those basic things, that's what I feel that we're approving. That it's not going to be a big open dance floor, and it's not going to be all meeting rooms, and it's not going to be all a dining room or something of that nature.
Yeah, and I'm kind of going along with that because I look at it and I say, yeah, this is about right. Yeah, it is about right. You've got meeting rooms, you've got all of those things. I'm just saying that I believe that a broader exposure, particularly among the members of the golf club, might provide additional ideas as to how this general concept be modified specifically. And that hasn't happened. We really, if you think it's been sufficient, okay, but I don't. I don't feel comfortable. So, I don't know. I'm not going to vote for it as it's worded right there. And I understand, Tom, you're on the spot. You're reading what right there. So please, but if I parse those words, I will defy at the end of the parsing for anybody to tell me what they really, really mean. Are we or are we not taking this specific design and voting?
Well, Dave, to answer that, back in, I think it was December, there were 3 proposals put forth for the concept for this building. And the association was privy to that months ago. And they had months to give their feedback on the 3 proposals if they so wished. We discussed all 3 proposals at the meeting, and it seemed to the general manager that the board favored this concept of the 3 proposals the most. So I think he took input from the board and from those meetings and got as close as he could. And I think this was proposal number 3, actually, the closest to proposal number 3, which seemed to be in favor of the board on previous discussions. And that's where he's put forth this recommendation.
But I will say that this proposal right now is significantly different from proposal number 3, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, whenever those were first put out. I mean, we're not talking about the same thing at all. I mean, there's significant differences, as you would expect. But I believe, though, bringing these out, and they're not, how do you want to say it? They're not well publicized. It's not easy for somebody who's a golf member to get this and find it, really study it. I don't know, maybe in 1 week. So I don't know. I would like to know. I'll repeat the question again. What are we voting on? If vote to approve this. I mean, it says in concept and so forth. In concept means one thing to me, but I'm not sure what it means to you. Does that mean those rooms are exactly like they're on the drawing? And if not, how do we get the change and how do we get input from other people who might have better ideas? I'm not sure we're getting the best ideas we can.
Thank you. The only thing that comes to mind here that I would feel uncomfortable with prior to voting is to know whether the Golf Advisory Committee has been given this plan, this layout, and whether we have a feedback from them. I'm not a golfer. I'm not familiar with the facility, and I really would not rely on my own experience when it comes to voting for this layout, other than just looking at the functional aspect. And I think at the work session on Monday we talked about it and brought up the issue of break room, permanent walls, why are we enclosing some space and things along those lines. But I think reaching out, if we haven't done so already, reaching out to Golf Advisory Committee or to Golf Council, a couple of formal bodies that are golf experts and are probably in a much better position to give the board a final assessment on whether this is the best plan or not. So if you all are in agreement and if this needs to be done, then maybe the best thing to do is just to table the motion and reach out quickly to the Golf Advisory Committee and other couple of groups that will provide a good feedback to us.
Sure.
Folks, let's step back a minute and think about, there are 2 things occurring here. One is that our police need more space, and that's a safety issue. And in order to give police more space in the most financially prudent manner, we are going to refigure the admin building. Well, to refigure the admin building, you lose some meeting space. So the plan that we have been discussing for months and at length at our almost 5-hour work session meeting Monday is the plan that you see before you that maximizes the meeting space, because we've all been in agreement that we need as much meeting space as possible. It gives us a dedicated, wired, using technology now, boardroom, and then gives additional space for golf functions. I don't understand why. Of course, one room may be a few inches one way or the other, But conceptually, this is what we've been talking about. This is what is being proposed. I don't understand why you're being hung up on the word conceptually, Dave, but I'm in total agreement with moving forward with this. This is what we've been moving towards.
Well, just a couple of comments on that, Cheryl. You bring up a good point. Put it in perspective. Okay, this is basically being put forward now, so that we move on May 1st.
Yes.
So we move forward on this on May 1st. Okay, now to put it in real perspective, think back less than a year, 9 months, and think that the previous solution to the police department, the only proposal on the table, was a public safety building out on 589, which would have taken years well,
That was never.
that's
That was somebody's idea of. But that was never proposed, and it was never going to happen.
There was nothing other. If there was something other than that, I'll apologize. Show me. Because there was nothing on the table. And the only thing we had on that was, and I still have the paper, that shows that it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that there was no solution that was going to remedy the problem quickly. Certainly not as quickly as May of this year, the police problem. Now, if we're going to start on the second floor of the country, we're basically going to do the work, get the permits and everything, and do the work during the summertime, and maybe into the fall. I don't know how long that's going to take. Judging on the downstairs, I would say it would certainly take. And that's a golf season. It's a golf season. If it started 3 months later, it would be done during the fall winter time, which is not a golf season, which we're not in. So the urgency is something I don't understand. Maybe you could explain it to me, understand it, but I don't know. I don't know what the absolute urgency is. I want to get it done. It's important. I think we're doing the right thing. We're going in the right direction. But why move fast when we can possibly get more information, get a better result?
Well, Dave, I think part of it is the fact that he wants to have it ready for the fall, for the package season in the fall, so they can hold banquets upstairs.
How many banquets have we ever had upstairs for the package players? I can't remember very many in my tenure here.
I'm just saying that's the idea of refurbishing the building so it can become more attract that type of business.
If we get details.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Police Administration Building Floor Plan. Same conceptual reasons that I previously announced. The motion is to move to accept the General Manager's recommendation of the attached floor plans for the Police and Administrative Building. Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Huntington Park Field Project Change Order. The motion is to move to accept staff recommendation. Worcester County 1.5-inch water service for a total of $4,435. When this project was originally bid and approved by the board, we were unaware that the county had started to charge for water hookups. The motion is to allow funding for the water meter so the project can have irrigation as was approved last year. It was not known at the time there would be charges related to water meter installation, so it was not provided in the initial board packet for approval. Irrigation system was already purchased by the vendor, and water is necessary for grass to take on the field. Do I have a second? Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Public Works and Golf Club gas system replacements. Motion is to move to accept staff recommendation, Fuel Systems LLC, purchase price $20,479 for Public Works and $7,573 for golf, for a total of $28,052. Contract for Public Works gas pumps was up for replacement as of 5/31 and in the budget. Golf was added to this contract because of the new golf carts. The system tracks usage of fuel with a meter reading at the golf club location. It will provide accountability at this location as well as its Public Works. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Cheryl?
We are seeing this for the first time now. This isn't something that was given to us at the work session to talk about, and so I don't feel like I have a lot of information, but one of the things that I'm curious about is there software associated with this that we're purchasing along with, I don't exactly understand what this is about, frankly.
Well, I can say from the capital project worksheet for the budget, the purpose was to install new gas system and server. And the way it was explained is the gas system was purchased around 1990. They do not make replacement parts for the system anymore. A new server is needed since the software for the new system is not compatible with our current server, and there is not enough memory on our current server.
This is my point exactly. This is not something that I believe has been discussed with the technology work group, because we are looking at all of these kinds of things. And if software is involved here, which certainly it seemed like it was, I don't know that we have sufficient information at this point to say yes or no to this. It sounds like we're talking about two different things. There's a piece of mechanical equipment that's utilized, I guess, to fuel these wonderful golf carts that we're now using that are gas when we used to have electric ones. That's a whole other issue. And the software associated with tracking all of the fuel that's used by the various vehicles here. So I think there's some missing information.
Well, the only information I could also provide is that the project needs to be complete by 5/31, specifically because the contract expires for Public Works. The reason why they added on the golf is because now with the new golf carts, they're looking to use this immediately for golf, so they can track the usage of the gas instead of just having a truck pull up to the gas tank and just fill up and go away. So I think it's more something for accountability than anything else at this point, because the pump is being utilized at the country club.
Director Jacobs makes a good point. I think everybody's in favor, obviously, buying a fuel management system if one is needed. I think what we are doing here is, with regard to a technology work group, is we don't want to end up with the issue of islands of isolation where there is no ability to communicate between the different systems. So in terms of logistical systems, operational systems, we want to make sure there is some level of standard and ability to integrate these systems if required. So I'm totally in favor of supporting the motion. I'm just wondering, how do we include a language that requires the staff to reach out to a technology work group and get their input with regard to whatever their final choices on a fuel management system are, so that whatever hardware or software they purchase, in essence, will integrate with our overall operational system design at the IT level. That's, I think, is the key here.
Dave?
Does anybody on this board know what this system is? I'm just going to talk about Public Works now. Assume golf is a smaller version of what's Public Works. I mean, I I mean, I've got 4 sentences here. Install new gas system and server. I don't know what that is. I mean, I don't know exactly what it does. I don't know exactly. It goes back to what did you say, 2007? And
Well, the gas system
public
originally
works?
was purchased 1990.
1990.
What we have now.
So we have a system that obviously includes a computer with software, which allows fueling of the gas and or fueling of vehicles in public works. So it's like a gas pump, computer. Okay, and now exactly what that has to do with all of the what the infrastructure that technology work on, I'm not sure. I mean, it's not a big sales system, I would think. Is measuring the amount of gas that's so I'm not sure that there's any real connectivity to it. It's old, real old, and you're basically saying Public Works is telling us that it's time to replace it. They just take that one. I mean, the other one about the golf course, we need that because we don't have it. It's 2 different things.
Right.
So I'm going without knowing exactly what these systems look like, but just making an intelligent guess. Yeah, I need them.
Well, Tom.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way too. When I read this, I mean, I was picturing a gas pump or something. I don't think I knew exactly what it was, but there does seem to be. I mean, we are replacing something that's there, and I appreciate the technology work and what they're doing. I also think maybe there's a time frame here that we need to work through, that we can't look at this for a month or 2 months or whatever. So I don't know how we. I would support going forward with this as a replacement. I certainly would want whatever software we get to be the best for Ocean Pines. And I don't know how we craft this motion to say that so that we can move forward, knowing that we don't even meet for another, as a board, for another month, which would, then everything gets pushed forward. And I don't know what the implications are if this current system stops functioning in May or whatever. So I'm reluctant to vote against it for that reason. I'd like to support it so that we can move forward with the software that I believe we need. Sounds, what we have is quite old. I don't know if anybody's got a thought on how to keep this moving without it getting, the technology workforce got a huge amount of work, huge, with just the financial area alone. So, and connectivity between our entities. So, I don't know. I don't have a solution right now, but I don't want to say, no, let's just stop it.
Well, I think they're asking for the funds to be allocated. I believe staff just gave them forth a proper recommendation based on the information that they have. I feel confident that this is the system that they think is best for us, and they're asking for us to fund their request. So if there's no, Cheryl.
My point about this is, why didn't we see this sooner? I mean, I get that we don't want to, we never like to drag my feet on anything, but we're just seeing this for the first time. I mean, why didn't we have this for the work session? We could have discussed it at that point, and we could have said, oh, let's quick take a look from the TWG perspective, because this is tracking the fuel consumption, and at some point there's going to be a tie-in back to what Mary's doing in finance area. I mean, that's the whole point of what we're trying to accomplish here, so that we have all of these things working in concert with one another. So I don't think there's a big deal, since this was just dropped on us now in the 11th hour, holding it off for 1 month Or if we can get some additional information, call a special meeting if we have to, do it by email. I don't think anybody's opposed, but I'm just saying I would like to have a little more information.
From my perspective, this is pretty much straightforward. The purchase needs to happen. The question is, how do we go about this? There are certain operational systems. This is one of those fuel management that need to basically tie into the back office systems. So that there is a question of integration, and for Public Works to go out and purchase something without getting input from the technology group to make sure there is an integration between these systems. If they need to talk to the back office, it has to happen. As Mary indicated, they're already looking into these areas to make sure there's a proper integration to the ledger or other back office ERP systems that we are considering and evaluating. So I'm all for the purchase, but it's important to make sure we don't end up with the islands of isolation because the systems are not talking to each other. We do have in the audience a member of the technology group who is a retired CIO, and if you want to get his opinion on this subject, we can suspend the rules of Robert's rules and get a quick comment from him. But to be clear, nobody, I believe, is questioning the purchase. We're concerned with making a purchase without technology group making sure that the configuration of the system that's being considered, especially software side, does have a total integration with our back office modules that need to be basically integrated.
If I may, the technology group is working on what's at least a 20-year problem for a long time. And it's doing so in a systematic way, and it's going to take time. When I say the technology, I really misspoke. That's going to take longer. What I'm talking about is Mary and trying to hook up immediately or as quickly as she can the various components that go to each other. I mean, we're always going to have things that are not connected or need to be done before that final solution. Yeah. I mean, the idea of waiting for it is just, I don't want to say nonsense, but that's pretty close to it. I mean, we wait a week or a month for the technology group to decide, and then they focus in on this problem, when there are many, many more problems that they have to be concerned, that they are concerned. They are working on. The same thing with Mary. I mean, basically, this is kind of like a dot compared to all of the other problems. We need something for the golf course because before we didn't have gas carts and we only pumped gas up for our vehicles or work vehicles, and now we've got golf carts that are using gas every day. You have to have something. People coming in, must have something. And 1990, come on. How many gas pumps are out there on the road that are 1990s? Anyway, I think this is urgent enough to something.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
You understand, I'm not opposed to this. We just don't have enough information yet, that's all.
Okay, CPI violation. I guess I'll introduce this also. 747 Ocean Parkway. There's a box trailer parked in the driveway. Recommendation from the general manager is to send it to the attorney for action for a 10-day notice, and then request legal approval to have the trailer removed. Property's been in continuous violation. Have a second.
Second.
Discussion.
There was one question on this, but I guess if Brett's not here, I don't can answer it.
Ask the question.
It was following the trace, follow-up inspection completed, box trailer removed property, that's 11817.
Yes, I spoke to Brett about that. He said one day that they drove by the trailer was missing, but it's there almost every single day, and it was there yesterday when I passed.
Okay, all right, that answers.
All in favor?
Okay. What's the motion? I don't
Oh, I'm sorry. The motion.
But I'll tell you what, we're not robots up here.
Finish this meeting fast. The motion is to find the property violation and to set the attorney for action for a 10-day notice and request legal approval to have the trailer.
I'll second.
Pat already seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Old business, second reading of resolution M09, Cheryl Jacobs.
This was presented at a prior meeting, and there really was nothing brought up that required it to be changed in any way, so I'm just bringing it back now. And wasn't included in your board package in error, but I have asked Michelle, and she has provided copies to everybody, so it is essentially the same thing, but I'll just go over it for the people who might not be familiar with it, and I'm moving that resolution M09 be amended to provide that a board liaison is not appointed to the search committee. Search committee is appointed in accordance with bylaws 5.02b. The purpose of the committee is to solicit association members to be candidates for election to the board of directors. Curiously, we don't have a search committee yet this year, but I think that's coming. There is no further elaboration in the bylaws regarding the operation of the committee. Resolution M09 provides for the role of the committee and other general and specific responsibilities, including support from the staff and management of the association. And in order to separate the committee from the direction and policies of the current board members, there should be no board liaison to the committee. And just to elaborate just a little bit additionally, when there can be a conflict with a sitting board member running to retain their seat, it can create an air of impropriety because that person, as the liaison to the search committee, would have knowledge about other candidates that are running, and they might use that information improperly. So it was the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee recommendation that there really doesn't need to be a liaison to the search committee, and that it would be a better situation that one not be appointed. I'd ask for a second to the motion.
Second.
Okay, discussion. I have some concerns over this request. This was first brought up to the board a couple months ago. It was not presented at a work session, and I felt like it was dropped at the 11th hour 2 months ago at that board meeting. I did not have enough information at the time, nor did I have time to research it, so I abstained from that vote. I was the only one to do so. Since that time, I've looked into this, and I have some concerns on a couple different aspects of it. It says no further elaboration in the bylaws regarding operation of the committee, but there is so, in fact. The bylaws say that chairpersons of individual members of the committee shall not give any orders to the GM or any other employee, that the president is to provide all instruction and directions to the GM concerning support of committee activities. The motion wants to separate the committee from the directions and policies of the current board members, that there should be no liaison, but Resolution C01 committee policy says a director appointed liaison to the committee is not a member of the committee, shall not direct the deliberations. So there really is no direction by a board member to direct the committee. But further, the president shall appoint the director to serve as liaison to the committee. That's the main committee policy, that the president should appoint a director to serve as liaison to the committee. Now, you're basically in conflict to CO1, where it says that you don't want to have a liaison to a committee, and I think that's a direct conflict. If there is no liaison, how will this committee function? How will they get the support that's needed? Does any committee member just go to staff or the GM? I mean, we're circumventing the protocol that's in our resolutions to show proper notification. If you look at the elections committee, which there may be perceived a problem with that committee as well, and I would be for this amendment as well, because I think that clarifies things, that it says in the event that the liaison subsequently becomes a candidate for re-election, the president shall appoint a director who is not seeking re-election. Now, if that language was in this, I can understand that at least you're still giving them the support of the board, you're still giving them the liaison, and the perception is which I still haven't seen proven, that there would be a problem, but that would eliminate that issue of that perception. The problem I'm having with the elections committee is I'm supposed to appoint the election committee in February. Search committee, and we put out notice, we put out email blasts, I made pleas at open board meetings, and it's hard to get volunteers when the board is not showing support for that committee by giving them liaison. And the same board here fought very hard to pass a motion recently to the 50-year anniversary committee to show support that we're behind them, even though they have the liaison, even though we've already professed support, and now we have a board that wants to take away support to this committee, and I don't feel comfortable doing so. I think it's hard for me to recruit volunteers from the community when they already see that the board doesn't really want to give full support or give liaison, and I think the committee, if we can get people and show support, that they need a way to for support from the board, so they have a protocol that's been set up in our other governing documents to get staff support. So I'm definitely against this on many issues.
I don't think the elimination of the liaison is saying that we don't support the committee, but I do think that your suggestion for some additional language has merit in terms of if, for example, the liaison turns out to be a director who's running for re-election, then appointing another director would be the appropriate language to change this, and then I think that it would satisfy your concerns, and so we've not heard that before, and so I appreciate you saying that now. Now, there are other members of the committee present, and I would ask for you to suspend the rules if any of them would like to comment further.
Yes, no problem.
Which committee?
Bylaws and resolutions, that's where this comes from.
Oh.
Are we in agreement?
Yes, all in favor?
All in favor. Aye. Murphy's Law. Talk loud, we'll hear you, Jeff.
Just recognition. Mike. I know. The battery's there.
Mary used that it worked.
My name is Jim Trummel, One Annapolis Court, Section 16. I'm a member of the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee. The purpose of the proposed amendment is simply to avoid the appearance of or actual influence on the operations of the committee. This deals with the election of the directors, which is a basic function of the association. It's entirely appropriate that that line be drawn between the board of directors and the committee. Now, the president has referred to C01. There is no reason, none, why an individual committee resolution, which this is, can vary from C01. There is no reason why the management of this association cannot, in some manner, allow interaction between the chairman of the committee and the staff. And those two people work out among themselves how things can be managed. If the staff member has a problem, he can go, or she can go to the general manager and get direction from the general manager. I reject the notion that you cannot allow such interaction. Again, the purpose of this amendment is to make sure to draw a line between the board of directors and the operation of the search committee. That's my comment. If you have no other questions, I will sit down.
Questions, thank you. Mr. Clark.
I don't want to pick on our esteemed president, but
We go to the microphone.
sure, nobody's going to want to use it after I.
No.
Well, Marty Clark, 111. I'm not picking on you, but to say that you can't get people to serve on the search committee because it doesn't have or may not have a liaison is a red herring. I would bet you, with the exception of Martin, nobody on the search committee knows whether it has a liaison or not. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's necessary. Yikes. Sorry.
I can understand, and again, there's perception there as well, but the problem here is that I see is for a board that want to offer support to one committee and turn around and not offer support, full support to another by giving them what every other committee and what we're supposed to, according to the governing documents, give every committee a liaison or proper protocol.
That's not correct.
Now, there also is, there's also perception with the elections committee possibly having some type of influence with a liaison that's running for re-election. I understand that, but that requirement was taken care of by just a simple line that says, if the liaison becomes a candidate, the president should just appoint a director who's not seeking re-election. You're still giving support to the elections committee. And if you perceive that to be a problem with the search committee, just put the same verbiage in there. And that takes care of it, and it's also not in conflict with C01. That's all I'm asking, to reconsider an amendment that allows the liaison, the board still gives us the liaison, but it's not someone who's running for re-election. Cheryl.
I would ask then that we be allowed to take this back and, excuse me, discuss it within the committee, because I am the liaison to the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, and then we'll make a decision within the committee will make a decision, and they'll either tell me to bring it back unchanged, or they'll talk about changing it. So I would ask that it be tabled until such time as I can take it back to.
I'll second it.
Postpone. Is that right?
I'd like to just comment, please. I want to comment on two issues here that have been brought up. I think we're talking about two separate things. One is the potential conflict between Resolution C01 and Resolution C09. Cheryl, excuse me, Mike.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I agree with what Mr. Jim Tummel stated. I see CO1 simply as a resolution that sets general guidance and procedures for the committees at large. MO9 sets guidance and procedures specific to the search committee. So I don't really see a conflict between the two. One is more general. The other one is very specific to the committee that's being a subject committee in the case of this discussion. Two, I believe the idea of removing board liaison from not being part of this committee has a lot of valid merits. First of all, it's a matter of confidentiality. Committee will discuss candidates, and I don't think board should be privy, anybody from the board should be privy to those discussions. So it's up to Director Jacobs if she wants to table this or not, but I'm totally in favor of the idea, and I've heard both sides of the views, and really nothing precludes me at this point in time from supporting the language proposed.
I'll just make a quick comment on C01. C01 is the general policy for committees. It's the set policy regarding advisory committees. That's what C01 is. So it's in writing. It's very clear the president shall appoint one or more directors as a liaison to each committee. That's our general. In addition, chairpersons or individual members shall not give orders to the general manager or any other employee. So to just have a committee members run to staff or the GM and tell them what they need is giving orders. Now, I know Ms. Jacobs likes something in writing. Well, Resolution C01 is in writing. It sets the policy. The policy is clear for all advisory committees. Just to say you want to make a resolution different for one committee than another, because you're allowed to do that, it's not following the policy that we're given in C01, and I disagree. If there's a policy and the policy is in writing, we should follow it. It says that there should be a liaison to each committee, we should do that. It says that the members of this committee should not just run to staff and tell them what they need or instruct them to do things. That's what we should follow. And if you don't want to follow this and you want to make up other resolutions for each individual committee, it doesn't follow the general policy, well then change the general policy. Because the general policy is not worth anything at that point. If you don't want to follow the policy for all the advisory committees, let's change that policy. But you just can't make up things as you go along because you want it to fit a different committee. I don't get it. Dave.
If I may. I understand your point very well, and I also agree that you don't make different policies for different committees. However, this is a different committee. It's one of the only committees that are mentioned of elections, specifically in the bylaws. And, you know, in the bylaws section 501, the search committee, 502, it indicates that the search committee is appointed by the president. I mean, that's the only committee that stands out, and it specifically says what the search committee is supposed to do. And it doesn't, so it's not automatic grouped with all of the other clubs committees and even bylaws. It's a separate committee called out in our bylaw. And I'm not so sure that a liaison, particularly one who's not eligible for election, is a bad idea. If nothing else, a liaison can give committee an idea how they might move forward on it. I think it's more helpful than it is hurtful. And I hard pressed to think that a liaison is going to somehow or another, particularly a liaison not running for election. But there is information. I mean, as to who's going to might be like to run, whatever, that's available to that committee. Now, I mean, I would pose, if you're going to go back to the certain bylaws and resolution, let me ask the question. Does that committee hold open sessions? If so, anybody can show up and listen to what they talk about. I think that's the whole point of it. So are they a real committee that was open session? But there is a difference, Tom, between this and other. And that's it. That's because of the bylaws.
Well, I also see the difference or the similarity between this committee and the elections committee, but the election committee also has caveat in there that there is a way that a liaison can be appointed, and that's my point.
Thank you.
You know, I could see a board liaison, even if not running for election, in some way influencing the committee or wanting to influence the committee in the search process. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure that we couldn't work through that committee's interaction with staff as needs arose without a liaison. And I don't know if the verbiage, this is a question, not a statement, I don't know if the verbiage that the president of the association shall appoint one or more directors is the same as the president must appoint. And that's a question for legal minds, probably not, but I can really see that a director on that particular, as a liaison to that particular committee, could influence or want to or try to, even if they're not running, there might be a candidate they really like and want to push for, and I don't think that committee would be the appropriate place for the director to push for that candidate.
No, but I will point out that the directors, as a liaison, shall not direct the deliberations of the committee for any committee. That's in our governing document. So any director can violate any rule that's in there, but that's how it's supposed to be followed, and not to direct any committee. So why would this one be any different?
Well, I don't, I know it says shall not direct any committee, but the reality would be that they would be there's meetings before and after the meeting, and during the meeting, this director would be there, and I believe could, under certain circumstances, influence the search committee's direction. Which I think for this committee, total separation from the board is not a bad thing. Just this committee, and I don't know what we do. I'm not, bylaws and resolutions. I don't know what we do about CO1 if, in fact, this says we're not following CO1, and I don't know what Jim said about that.
To Dave's contention, any director can go to this open meeting and also have conversation with the people on the committee. I don't see how you would stop that just because the name is a liaison. Any director can go to the open committee meeting, and any director can talk to anybody they want.
I think we have a problem.
Mr. Bath, please hello on the microphone. I'm Dave, you can hear me. I'm Martin Bear. I live here in the park on Cape May Place, 28 Cape May Place. I was a previous chairman the past number of years of the search committee, not this current one. And Tom's language with regard to assuring that no director who's possibly up for election be the liaison would work. I have had experience that there have been directors in the past who they didn't commit to run, and they were privy to all the candidates, who was running, how many people were running, and where we stood. So the idea that you put specific language that a liaison would be identified that is not up potentially for re-election is probably the answer to all of this. And in the past, there's not been a huge burden or request through the liaison for assistance. The general manager and the general manager executive assistant has been very helpful with regard to procedures for the search committee. But the language to assure that, in fact, no director potentially could be running for re-election is the liaison. I think that would really suffice the issue. Thank you.
So the motion that's on the table that's been seconded is to table at this point. All in favor of tabling it?
Could you use the word postpone?
How did you word it, Cheryl?
I believe that I did say postpone it and allow it to take it back to.
Yeah, postpone is the table because it comes up later.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. New business, first reading resolution M06 amendment, Slobod and Trendick.
Thank you, Director Herrick. Motion. I move to amend Resolution M06 with changes recommended in the attached revised version that intend to A. Improve transparency in the election process, B. Clarify instructions to candidates, and C. Provide election results as soon as ballots are counted. Background. During our 2016 election process, the community members and the candidates identified several areas where improvements to Resolution M06 are desirable. Discussion. Proposed revisions to Resolution M06 intend to respond to the call for more transparency and to improve the overall election process.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Cheryl?
I am happy to see the change in the language that addresses that it be counted in a space sufficient to accommodate whoever wants to show up. However, I still am not in favor of announcing it at the conclusion of the counting process. And I still rely on what the bylaws say under Article 4, Section 4.02b. If, in fact, you didn't have a quorum and you had to have a special meeting, there is language there that says the voting results shall be received from the Elections Committee, and the Board of Directors would then validate the election of directors. That language to me means the same thing that it would occur during the annual meeting. In other words, those election results are going to be received from the Elections Committee and then validated by the Board of Directors. I can see a situation where you are potentially having a tie vote and a person wants to challenge the results by calling for a recount. That doesn't occur until the annual meeting under the current language. So they may say, I'm not going to participate in a chance termination of who won because I want a recount because I believe there really isn't a tie. And so the situation becomes further complicated now because you're saying announce the results at the conclusion of the counting, and I may say if I'm one of those candidates that's in a tie with somebody else, no, I want a recount before I'm willing to take an opportunity and draw a card to say whether I win or I don't. So I think there are just, in addition to the fact that I think the bylaws ought to be followed, I think there are problems that can occur if you start trying to announce the results after the count. Everything else I'm okay with.
And I agree, and I think this was the area that our attorney recommended And I'm not comfortable approving something that approving something that goes contrary to what our attorney recommended. I would want to go back and know that not, and maybe the bylaws is the issue. Maybe that's why the attorney did not recommend this. So I could not support the proposed changes in that area.
Well, I think the committee did a great job. They've made some major changes that open up transparency, which I was a proponent of last year and I fought for. And to me, that was the most important thing that I saw that came out of this, that anyone could go and see the tabulation of the ballots and it was open. But I agree with Cheryl too. I mean, but I'm a traditionalist and I prefer that the membership receive the announcement of the results of the annual meeting to be validated. You know, the annual meeting is a meeting of the members. It's their meeting. I believe it's the most fitting time and place for such an important announcement for the community to take place. And if you look back to 2008, 2011 was the only time we didn't have a quorum at that meeting, and I think part of that is because the results are announced at that meeting. And if you announce them before, I don't know how we're going to get a quorum at the meeting, and I think it takes away from that meeting. I think it's something that the people look forward to get the announcement at the meeting, and I prefer to keep it that way. So I also would vote against it for that one reason.
Yeah, I'll disagree. It's very, very simple. I think we will go through all of this thing, look for transparency. So now we've got more people in there watching the vote counted, but nobody gets to know the results the next day at the meeting. I don't, as far as disagreeing with the attorney goes, I can't tell you the number of times that's happened over the last 10 years that I've been around, and it doesn't bother me one little bit. It's a matter of perspective, a matter of interpretation, and opinion. An opinion. What we got there is an opinion. Well, we pay him, why shouldn't we follow his opinion? Well, there's a lot of good reasons a lot of the time. But at any rate, having dismissed, let's say we're going to work this out on our own. There's nothing in in these bylaws that prohibits the earlier announcement, but immediate announcement of the winner right after the vote has been counted. Matter of fact, it's the most practical thing because the vote is there. That does not take away at all the need to validate the voted next day. What happens on the next day is that the announcement is read by the election, and that reading of the announcement is in itself the validation of the vote. There's no vote. Everybody's accepted or anything like that. Now, talk about, Cheryl brings up the point, which is one that's bugged me for the last many, many years, is when do you actually get, if you have a tie vote, say, well, it doesn't have to be tied. Somebody wins by one vote. Could happen. When do you get, as a candidate who happened to lose by one vote, the opportunity to say, I want to recount? And I can tell you, during those meetings, there's little opportunity given for that. Little opportunity. I mean, the candidate gets the announcement, oh, you lost by one vote. Everybody's going, yay, and talking, and do I have a motion to adjourn? You take away that opportunity. If the candidate, who certainly will be there at the vote count, understands what the count is, then he can at least have an evening to decide whether or not he really wants a recount or not. It's fair. It's fair to the candidates. I think the issue, once you get into this, the issue of we may not have a quorum. So what? You know what? I feel zero sympathy for people who only come to that meeting to hear the vote count. It's more than that. It's a members' meeting. You're getting reports and end-of-year reports from different people. And if you're not interested in it, then I don't care. I don't care. And the validation happens either that day or the next day with a forum of the board of directors, and they are read the results. They don't vote and say, yeah, we accept them or not accept them. They're told the results, they're validated. And they're validated. So all of these issues are nonsense issues. I mean, in my mind, my opinion, they're nonsense issues. The attorney said we should do it this way. Well, you know, we have a new attorney this year, and that might be his opinion. But even with our current former attorney, we had differences. And the idea that it's going to get a quorum for us is non-issue. The idea that that it could be difficult for somebody who wants to recount, more difficult, it's going to be less difficult. It'll give somebody a chance. So all of those reasons are good reasons for putting the numbers up, posting right on the board afterwards. Anybody who's there can go look at them and say, hey, you know, so-and-so won. And the next day, they'll all go in there and they'll say, well, you know, so-and-so won. It'll be announced, it'll be validated, but before it's, once it's announced, somebody can have the opportunity to say, look, I want to recount. I believe the committee has thought this through very thoroughly, and I think they're right, that to reach the best possible conclusion.
Mr. Trendick?
Thank you. First of all, I want to publicly applaud the Elections Committee for the effort they have put into this revision of Resolution M06. As some of you might know, it's a brand new committee composed of all new members, and the amount of time and due diligence they have put into this is applaudable. And furthermore, they have done this in direct collaboration with the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee. So the two committees have put their energy, experience, skills into assembling what is now a revision of the M06. I'd like to ask my three colleagues here to reconsider their position and to join Director Stevens and me in supporting this first reading. What you brought up in many cases are your interpretations of the information and opinions, but the fact remains that what the committee is proposing is that, first of all, the committee is the one that certifies the results, and that's it, they're final unless they are contested. Two, the committee recommends the announcement of the election results be made right after the vote count. That's pretty much what happens with the national elections, state and local elections, so why are we so different? Three, you know, English is not my mother tongue, but there is a difference between announcing results and presenting results at the annual meeting. That doesn't mean the same. Presenting something is presenting to the audience what happened yesterday, which was results were announced by the committee. I think what this comes down to basically is the concern that we are not going to have a quorum at the annual meeting, therefore we're not going to have annual meeting. Well, I don't think that's really something that the committee should be punished for, and I don't think that's the reason not to announce results right after the vote count. If the concern is not that a quorum is not going to be present at the annual meeting, I would challenge the community and all the other committees, 13 committees, to put their creative energy together and come up with the agenda that's actually going to bring hundreds of people, and we are only going to have a standing room because the turnout is going to be huge. Maybe selling 50-50 raffles. But, you know, in the past, the board has been driving agenda for the annual meetings when, in fact, it should be membership. We have executive council, we have committee chairs, we have a lot of active community members. I'm sure they can come up with the agenda that's going to be a lot more exciting than a half an hour of dry treasury presentation. So, you know, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand how you feel, we all have our own opinions, but I look at this as basically what makes sense, and I don't see what the committee is proposing in terms of the changes, that there is any conflict with bylaws, or there is a breach of rules, or that we are doing anything that's not in compliance with law. We have a lawyer here who is a member of the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee. He can certainly make his own comments. We have chair of the Elections Committee present as well. But I would like to ask President to suspend Robert's rules and allow comments from them before you call for a vote. But to me, this really should be pretty straightforward. We are responding to community's request for full transparency. This has been discussed and debated, and the results really should be announced right after the vote counting. The presentation of the results is different from announcement. The validation of the results is different from announcing the results the day before. So let's keep clearly the interpretation of the terminology used, and I would like to ask Director Herrick to suspend the rules so that Chairman Tuttle and Jim Trummel, if they so choose, can make additional comments before this is called for a vote.
Ms. Jacobs.
Before we do that, if you choose to do that, let me just make it clear that my position not to support that portion of the amended M06 has nothing to do with whether or not we can get a quorum. It is strictly based on the language as it exists. And I probably misspoke when I said everything else is okay, because I'm a very picky editor, and I did pick up some punctuation that was missing, some words that were missing that I would tell you in addition to the rest of it, but I don't want to clog up your time now with that. But I do have a couple of other things that need to be corrected, but I just want to make it clear that my objection to that portion has nothing to do with whether or not we can get a quorum, because as Director Stevens said, we just have to turn around and have it right afterwards. Clearly based on the language.
If I could, just to bring up one point, Director Trendick brought it up. This is a call for a first reading, and I think the advantage, the key issue, and I'm sure there are others, Cheryl said, but the key issue is, are they read at the meeting, or are they posted the night before? I mean, is that not? I mean, that's the one. That's the one. And again, I would very much like to see this motion go through as a first reading, because what will happen? It will be posted on the webpage. Maybe we can even post it on our real forum, and pretty sure Joe Reynolds posted on his fake forum or whatever it is, and we'll go. You know, I mean, I'd like to hear again. It's an issue of hearing the community, and if that's the key issue, that's a tough one. That's the one you want to hear about, and you know, not so much the smaller change.
So as a matter of process, then approving the first reading does not indicate that we approve the first reading. I'm, you know, because I'm where Cheryl is. The language, and my thoughts about announcing it at the meeting have nothing to do with trying to get a quorum for that meeting. That's not what I'm thinking about at all. And I guess as a matter of procedure, and Dave, you've been doing this for a while, as you mentioned to us. If we say, okay, that's a first reading, are we saying everything in there is okay, or we go back and do something else? And
you know,
if you go forward, that's what you're saying. That's what I thought. We're
going to break some new ground here, but I believe that what you do, and again, I would ask Jim Trummel or the bylaws permit committee for opinion, but I believe we can approve first reading. The caveat being that key objection or key question regarding this motion is, and basically state that there are members the motion modified. Yeah. I mean, in other words, you have two choices. Is what I'm trying to break down on this motion. We don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I mean, I think you were all agreed to that, and lose all the work. So the way to do it is say first reading, and it's either or.
Well, I'll make a comment. This is the first reading, but it's not the first time it's come before the board. We've spoke about this. It's been presented before. Changes have been made. It's gone back to committee from input that we've given them. We've all made our feelings known to the committee, both committees, and we've let them know how we felt about it. And this is the product of our input in the past. And to delay this again they already know how we feel. We already know how they feel. They've given us many emails. They've spoken to it. They've gone back and forth with the attorney. So when you say this is a first read, this has actually been going on for quite a long time. And I think both sides have given their opinions. And by delaying it, I don't see how this delay is going to change anything. We already gave our opinions. They gave the product to us based on what we've given them. And just putting it off again, I don't see, when it comes to the second reading, what the change could possibly be at that point. Cheryl?
Well, I just want to disagree with what Dave proposed and make it clear that your vote on whether or not you accept this at the first reading means you accept it as presented. So if you do not want everything as it's been presented, then you vote against it. And you can say, I'm voting against it because of that one particular area. But you don't say, I accept it, but for. So it is either one way or the other, but if you vote to accept it, you're accepting what they've presented to us. If you vote not to accept it on the first reading, you can say, I vote against it because I'm still in disagreement with that. They will take that back and they may come back to us and say, I don't care, this is still what we think is best, and then we'll vote up or down one way or the other.
I would like again to ask that we suspend Robert's Rules of Order and allow the two committees to make their final comments before we call for.
I will suspend Robert's Rules. I will suspend Robert's Rules because I do feel as much information as the board can get is productive. At this point, though, I don't see much more that can be offered than what has already been offered and spoken to the board. But if anyone wants to make comment and come and give it new information, we'll be more than happy to hear
it. Steve Tuttle, 40 Bird Hill. I don't. This on? No. Steve Tuttle, 40 Bird Hill. I'm also chair of the election committee. I don't have new additional information to present. I think there was a question about a tie. The way the bylaws read, a tie is resolved at the annual meeting by a game of chance by the elections chair. I don't see that as in any way impacting announcing the results on the day vote is counted. It is my opinion, as I think Dave has articulated very well, that if you announce the vote as soon as the ballots are completed, people know what the situation is. If it's a candidate who feels like the results are too close, that they want to recount, that gives them time to think that through the night before or the night after the count. They come to the annual meeting, and before the entire membership is given the results, the candidate can request a recount, and then the board takes the appropriate action per the bylaws in that situation. As far as the concerns that have been expressed about annual meeting, I have posed to Director Herrick a number of possibilities. I think there's a lot that could be done to make the annual meeting a not to miss event, but it's going to take the community to work together to do that. I don't think the election committee and the ballot counting should be the deciding factor as to what we do with the annual meeting. And I've offered to work with that. I know other people that are willing to work with that to make the annual meeting something that people will really want to be at, not just results are being announced. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Cheryl.
Based on Mr. Tuttle's comment about what I had talked about as a potential problem, I'm not sure if he understood what I was saying. If, in fact, there was an agreement to have the counting occur, the announcement after the counting occur, and there was a tie, a person who potentially would want a recount that was involved in the tie would say, I'm not going to agree to draw a card in this tie because I want a recount. And so that does present a problem if your request for a recount does not occur until an annual meeting. So you would be putting up your hands and saying, I'm one of the people who was tied with the other candidate, but I'm not willing to draw a card because I want a recount. So I'm not sure, maybe I hadn't made that clear before.
A couple of comments, and I've been making notes, so I probably will miss a couple. All you're doing here is accepting a first reading, not accepting or in a sense of approval. You're recognizing that you have held a first reading, which is required by B01. Subsequent to your first reading, anything can happen. You make changes at your second reading, you receive changes, not changes, recommendations from wherever, and at your second reading, you can make all kinds of changes without further additional readings. All you're doing now is recognizing, however you want to phrase that there has in fact been a first reading. Now, if you don't like what's before you with such strength, you have a majority on the board that does not, you can vote not to approve the resolution in any manner. Reject it. No first reading. We don't recognize this as a first reading. It's gone. It's off the table. Now, another item, and again, I can't make much of a comment about the announcement of the results. There are a number of things to take into consideration. Number one, when there is a validation, whether it's at the annual meeting, the quorum, or at a subsequent board meeting, the members who were elected immediately become members of the board of directors. The changes immediately. And that was decided, I believe, confirmed last summer when there was a debate about that. Maybe I'm missing it 2 years ago. I'm losing my sense of history in some cases. There's discussion about the tie vote, request for revote, request for recount. You've got to take that kind of thing into consideration. I don't think you can have a request for recount without there being a validation of the results. And how you're going to fit that in there, when it has to be, as the resolution reads now, it has to be at the annual meeting. Quite frankly, I don't see much choice in that. Because as I said, upon validation, the elected members become members of the board. The only thing that remains is the election of officers, which has to be at the organization meeting 2 weeks later. There was one other item I wanted to comment on. Frankly, I stand here and I can't easily remember it. I will make one final comment. I invite anybody who's interested to review the video of the 2011 election and how the lack of quorum was handled there. You're going to have to go to the Fake News or Open Pines forum to see it. I can't find it on the videos. Don't go back, I believe, far enough on the Ocean Pines website. What happened was there was a special meeting of the pre-election board to validate the election, and the members, the elected members, then took their place at board of directors for the immediately following organization. That's how it was done at that time. Right? If you want to have a special meeting the next day of the board, so be it. You're going to be facing notice requirements. So, again, there was another item I wanted to say something about. Well, I'm sorry. I do. I've been accused by a person close to me I talk too much. I do have other comments on the remainder of the resolution beyond what's been discussed today, and I tend to hold off on those until next meeting of the Bylaws Committee and review my comments at that time. Committee, and whether the committee wishes to go forward with anything as the committee back to the board with regard to my comments or any other members' comments. That fits within the first reading requirement. First reading is so that the association members know what's going on, and to an extent, I somewhat disagree with it. When you have a working meeting such as you had, that may help you move forward, but it also muddies up the first reading concept.
Thank you.
I'm not using that microphone. My hearing is shot bad enough. There seems to be, I'm picking up some confusion on who validates the election results at the annual meeting. It is not, right? Does everybody understand? I mean, the board of directors don't have to be there except the president, presiding officer. With regard to the attorney's opinion that we got, I want to remind you that less than 3 years ago, we got an attorney opinion from somebody who I know what he's talking about, that a director wasn't a director until they took the oath. There is no oath. We pretend there's one, and we smell me, but there's no oath in any document. Lastly, the board could only just take a minute to point out to me where any governing document motion might say, hold a carrot out of the election results to fill the room for them. It isn't there. It's just isn't there. You can't get it for them, you can't get it for them. Big deal, gone. Even though I got to tell you, I'm a member of 2 condominium associations that require 50% attendance. Neither one has ever not had it. They're all second homeowners, mostly.
Any other discussion?
I have no idea what we're even going to vote on right now. Given Jim Trummel's comments about, we're just saying, okay, that was the first reading, and the second reading could be totally different. I just don't want to use everybody's valuable time, which, I feel like we've said the same thing kind of 20 different ways and in both meetings, Monday and today. So I just want to be clear when we're voting what exactly we're voting on. Is this a first reading, but we really don't agree with what's there, but we'll accept it as a first reading, and then the second reading would be the approval? I mean, I'd like to kind of have that clarified. I mean, I think that's what it is. I mean, I think that's what Jim Trummel said. So if the motion could be read that way. Do you know what I'm saying?
That this is first reading.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
Jim said. And it does not require complete agreement with everything in it. But on the other hand, it does provide the opportunity to look for specific changes. And for subsequent second reading.
If there's a full agreement on the first reading, why would there be change needed? I mean, if we're agreeing on this,
I think Jim made the point, Tom, that by accepting this as the first reading, major thing that happens is it gets posted on the webpage clearly in some place where everybody can see it, and that the community has a month to read it and to understand it and to provide input to us. I mean, that's the whole. I mean, it's not first reading is intended to make it visible what we're doing, an important change, visible to the entire community. That's the whole.
Sure.
Procedurally, even if we were all in agreement with everything that's in it, there still has to be a second. So,
There has to be.
Yes.
Call the question. All in favor of the motion? Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye.
I think we're in agreement to accept it as a first reading, but not agree.
Yeah.
No, well, I tell you what, you only get one choice and you just made it.
I did.
Right now, we are back to 0. We have nothing.
So can't go forward with anything.
No, we can't go forward with anything. I don't know why that's not.
This is absolutely wrong.
I disagree.
What you wrong?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Cheryl.
Absolutely not.
What do you think we're going to do next?
It goes back to them.
Draft to submit RFI to solicit options regarding network connectivity for business operations with Ocean Pines. I'm going to present on behalf of Doug Parks, who was unable to be here today. Motion to move to draft and submit an RFI to solicit options regarding network connectivity for business operations with Ocean Pines. The background to the motion is the Technology Work Group has identified a need to have the various facilities in the community interconnected in a reliable manner in order to effectively conduct business operations. Discussion phases through the discovery phase of the project, it was determined that the current network environment connecting our facilities has functioned at a less than optimum level. Outages in the network infrastructure have disrupted business functions on numerous occasions. The intent is to get approval to issue an RFI, request for information, in order to gather information on potential options to address the current conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Jacobs.
In my opinion, this motion is a little premature. Certainly, I'm in favor of getting an RFI. We have to get more information. However, as a member of the Technology Work Group, excuse me, we are, and as a community, we're in the interesting position of not even understanding what our infrastructure currently is. One would think that we would have facilities information about what exists, but we do not. And we are in the process of trying to gather that information. We've got the Technology Work Group, as well as Mr. Len Smith, who is assisting the TWG, and we have had recently a meeting with a vendor, our current vendor, to help us determine what it is that we have. It's my opinion that until we know what we have, and that is supposed to occur within the next 30 days, that vendor owes us the feedback within less than 30 days now. It would be a little premature to put out an RFI. So while I am totally in favor of it, I would ask that this be postponed until next month's meeting when we have a better handle on what it is that we already have.
Good.
Please.
I hear what you're saying, Cheryl, and that seems a really valid point. I also know, or have heard, I don't know, I mean, I've heard that our connectivity is an issue. So in the interest of time, I wonder, I don't know, of course, Doug's not here, and this was his motion. Rather than, since you say it's less than 30 days, we'll have some information. could we have the motion that we're going to submit an RFI once we receive this information? That way we're not waiting for the next board meeting, the next work session, the next board meeting. This is going to go forward as soon as we have the backup information that we need.
Well, Doug's the chair of that group, and he put this forth because he felt that it was prudent to begin moving forward at this time, that the group itself was looking for information that would be helpful to help them and the board assist in making a decision going forward for the future. As far as the group itself looking and trying to understanding what we have, I think we all understand what we have is in pretty bad shape, and we're looking to improve it. And just receiving information will help that committee and the board help make a decision where we have to go. So all information, that's all we're asking for, information. Doesn't mean we're doing anything. We're just gathering information to help us with the decision going forward. So I'm in favor of what Doug is proposing here. Okay.
Yeah, I again, I'm not quite sure I understand the point of waiting for information to delay putting out a request for information. I mean, it's coming from one point. I mean, and what we're looking for is to go out broad and try and solicit across as many sources as we can. I mean, that's the hope in our well, one has to do the other. Again,
Cheryl.
Well, my point is, how do you craft the RFI when you don't even know what you have currently? So that's where I'm coming from with that. That's why I'm always suggesting that it would be prudent, in my opinion, to know what you have before you start crafting an RFI to solicit information.
Director Jacobs makes a very good point. If you all recall, back in February, when we had a discussion on this subject, it was encouraged that we follow a certain process. That's why I suggested in early February we start with the RFI as opposed to an RFP. The issue here, some of us who've been with industry and understand the concept of project phases and the role and the purpose of an RFI, there's a certain amount of elementary information that needs to be included in a request for a information in order to get substantive and usable information from potential vendors. We got to demonstrate and provide certain elementary information, which right now is missing. The meeting with Mediacom intended to initiate this effort to get an understanding on the inventory of our physical network infrastructure, and basically, based on that information, be able to craft a credible RFI, or perhaps do something else beforehand, so that we do have a very professional request for information and get credible responses. So I do feel that waiting for Mediacom to come back as our current vendor is really important and will help us with the whole project concept. And just for a clarity sake, because there has been a lot of chatter on a forum, on Ocean Pines forum, not the real forum, about the fiber that the board is discussing. And I think what we need to make sure is that the community is aware that what this board has been asked to do is to evaluate the needs of our association from a business perspective, our communication needs. What we are talking about here has nothing to do with fiber to Ocean Pines homes and each individual residence. So, because there is concern about certain members of the board meeting with some vendors and promoting certain projects, that is not what we are talking about here. From my perspective, we are purely asked to look at the needs of the association and our day-to-day running of the business. And the project that we are considering is really to address our business needs as an association. And again, I would be much more comfortable if we wait for our existing vendor, Mediacom, to provide an update and to tell us what we have, and then based on that, really sit down and decide how to go forward with the project and how to craft a credible RFI as a potential next step.
I don't have much experience in this field, but I have to follow the lead of Doug because I know he is experienced. I know he's the chair of that committee. He feels that this is the time to get the information. I mean, the request for information is only part of the educational process, not only for his work group, but it's to provide information to the board to consider as well. The fiber is the future of communications, and it may serve our community, tremendously going forward. And this was one of the main reasons why Doug asked to have this committee formed, so they can establish and provide advice to the board on improving the service to all our facilities. And they've been meeting for months. They've given input. I would suppose to Doug that he's coming out with this request for the board for support of the committee's activities. And I'm glad you bring up the negotiations with Mediacom as well, because, the negotiation, the contract expires 2018. We're going to start negotiations with Mediacom soon, and having other options, or possibly having other options for this association to consider, is huge leverage in those negotiations, and will give us options that we don't have if we just keep our head in the sand and not looking for other options. So I have to follow Doug's experience, his advice. He's the one working with this group. The group is looking for information, and I think it's up to the board to give them what they need to give us the information we need to go forward. All it is information. I'm surprised we're even having a discussion of information. Dave?
And I'd just like to point out, there are two kinds of information that are going to be required to put together before we identify a solution. One is, what is out there? What are the systems that are out there? And that is independent of what we have. The one thing I'm pretty sure is what we have is not a solution. So, you can wait for Mediacom. Mediacom can tell us, exactly what's in. That's all important stuff. But independent of that, you can find out what the various technologies are and what people have. And there is no reason in the world that I can think of to wait for that, because they don't necessarily connect to each other. Not until we get to the point where we're looking for a request proposal and we've selected among the things that are out there as possible solutions.
Cheryl?
Well, with all due respect, Tom, when you jump to saying something like it's fiber, that does indicate that you don't have sufficient knowledge in technology, because there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's lots of things available, and all of those will ultimately be pursued. But I just think although it seemed incredible to me that we don't know what we have, that is a very important missing piece of information. And some of it, frankly, could impact the current contractual relationship that we have with our current vendor, because there was language in their extension 10 years ago. Again, we don't even have, or at least I've not been presented with a copy of current extension that called for fiber to be put in the ground. Was it ever done? How does that impact anything? I mean, we don't know until we hear back from them what it is we have. And we are looking at our community from two perspectives. One, when we renegotiate with MediaCom, there is the residential side of what they have to offer, and then there is, as Pat's talking about, and what TWG's been mostly concerned about, is the day-to-day operations within the business of Ocean Pines. And we certainly know that we have issues with connectivity and reliability. And those are the things that we are working towards trying to improve. But that can be done in a lot of different ways. And fiber may or may not be ultimately the solution. But I still maintain that there's a missing piece of information that would be very helpful to have before we go crafting an RFI.
I just want to, I guess, what I heard, I think Dave say is that this RFI, we're simply going to find out what options are out there. So I guess initially I thought, well, maybe we should know what we have. But I'm thinking if we're just going to find out what's out there, that's all this is going to do. Because I'm certainly in favor of going forward knowing the problems that we have with sharing information between our facilities. I'm not sure that I see any harm in sending out an RFI to get information on what's out there. And then at the same time, it's going to happen almost simultaneous. We'll find out what we have. And we're finding it out from MediaCom, so we're finding it out from a vendor. So, there's a lot of, I guess, information we need. One piece is MediaCom. The other is, hey, what's out there? Not just fiber. I mean, I don't know enough to even say what other connectivity is out there. But I don't see any harm in going forward with this RFI. Only the RFI, that's all we're talking about. Finding out what's out there.
Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
For the reason that I just don't think we're ready for it.
Oh.
I'm up with time. Yeah.
Okay.
Timing. I'm up
Three,
with time.
Okay, 3-2. Okay, appointments. I'm requesting permission from the board, appoint Victor Burke and Rick Jackson to this search committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. To adjourn to closed session. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Michelle, did you get that?
Yes, sir.